Today we're writing a program that prompts the user for a string. You enter the string, and then what it does is prints the string and then all the even characters. First, we need to get an input from the user. We use input for that. And what we put in here is whatever we want to say to the user. We're going to say enter a string. And we need to store the result of that into a variable. So we're going to call that user underscore input. And what you want to do when you're declaring variables is use lowercase and separate them with underscores. Let's go ahead and print this out. So we entered in my string and we printed out my string. Next thing I want to show you is the basics of a for loop, which is an iterator. So what you could do is for character in user input, colon, and it's going to access all the code in this loop. And what this does is go through each character of the string that you enter one at a time. And we're going to be able to print each one of them out by going print character. So it loops through each one of them and it puts the character in character here. So now let's go ahead and run this again. Go my string, and it's going to print every single individual character. Now that's good on its own and very useful, but not in this case because we only want even position things. So how do we do that? So there's something you need to know about, which is called len, and it will give the size of the string. And then there's something called range. You give it a start condition and then you give it an end condition, and it's going to basically go through all those positions, and you can use that in combination with a for loop to basically loop through all the indexes. So now we can go index in range 0 user input, and now we don't have character here, but we have index. So what you will see here is we're going to enter user input again. Let's go with my string again, just so it's familiar. And now it's going 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so now we want to print out the individual characters. You can reference individual characters by a concept called slicing. You put brackets around it, and then you put what index you want to print out. So now if we do this and go and enter my string, we see that we have all the characters. So now we need to use an if statement. So what this will say is only run the code inside the if block if the condition is met. So if you remember all the way back in integer division, any result had two parts to it: the whole number and then the remainder. Here I drew you a really high quality picture. If you divide by 2, the remainder is going to be 1 if it's odd and 0 if it's not. So we can go index mod, which that does the remainder, double equals 0, colon, and just like the for loop, we have to indent. We do the colon and indent. And so now we're going to get the input from the user, my string, and now it only printed the even. So how would we change this to only print the odd? We would change this number here to double equal 1. And now if we run this again, it's going to print the odds. There's an alternate way to do this in Python, and it's something called an enumerate. And what enumerate will do is it will give a counter of all the values and then also return the value. So we can go back and go to character in range, enumerate on user input. And now we can do index, and instead of doing it by the index, we could just print out the character. So this would be odds right here. And then if we wanted to do evens, we would turn this back to 0. And I didn't save the program. Okay, run it. Yay! If you want a slower paced, more in-depth video that explains this, click here.